All right, go ahead and make sure you put your name, your first and last name on this line. Don't worry about the other lines. So pause the video if you need to write your name right here. Read the passage and answer the questions that follow. Excerpt from Last Regrets by Paige Hook. Paragraph 1. I sat in my pink-flowered swimsuit on the hot concrete of the driveway, my legs stretched out in front of me, my chipped pink toenails pointing to the sky. I was reflecting on the brilliant defeat the boys had just suffered in yet another water fight with the neighborhood girls. Looking down the driveway to the road, I felt the ground beneath me rumble. My legs began to shake, the leaves on the ground trembled, and I could swear that a flower pot tumbled over on my neighbor's front porch. The intense rattling increased with every passing second. I got up and started to run, my bare feet smacking against the scalding pavement. I had to hide until I found an excuse, something, anything to get me out of it. "Paige," I heard my mom call from the front door. "Come inside, your grandparents just pulled up." "Rats," I whispered. Slowly, I turned around and walked back with my head down, looking at the pavement. When I got to my driveway, I looked up and saw the familiar sight. It was a monster, a big white monster, complete with an "I love fishing" bumper sticker. The shadow it made almost covered the entire driveway. But the real problem sat behind the white monster. It looked harmless at first, but I had already spent too many boring afternoons in it this summer. It was a little red fishing boat, my grandpa and grandma's pride and joy. I walked inside the house where my grandparents and my mom were standing around the island in the kitchen. I gave both of my grandparents a hug and proceeded to the cupboard for a glass. If you haven't annotated on the page before, make sure you pause this video and annotate. Paragraph 8. "How about some fishing, Paige?" my grandpa asked. "Your two brothers are raring to go." This is what I'd been dreading. "I don't know, Grandpa, it's pretty hot out." "It's never too hot to fish. I brought the boat and everything. It's all hitched up behind the RV. I know how much you love riding in the boat." He was wrong. I hated that boat. I liked riding in boats when they were going fast. I liked riding in boats that I could water ski behind. I'd even settle for tubing if skiing wasn't an option. But fishing boats hardly even moved. "We'll have to buy you a new fishing pole first. Your mom said you lost your last one," said Grandpa. I seemed to lose a lot of fishing poles, but my grandpa never minded. He would just take me to Target to buy another one. In 20 minutes, I found myself walking into the mouth of the monster, complete with pink interior from the dirt-covered floor mats to the darker pink seats. Behind the seats nestled a small kitchenette, littered with what was surely last month's breakfast. 2 plates covered with syrup, an old waffle box, an empty carton of eggs, and a basket filled with rotten fruit. Across the kitchenette stood the bathroom, which contributed to the monster's bad case of morning breath. Beyond this was a small bed piled high with pink blankets, resembling a tongue that could lash out at any time and swallow me whole. Hanging neatly on hooks above the kitchenette counter were Grandpa's hats, white with stains like teeth that hadn't been brushed in a while. They all had sayings like "Number 1 Grandpa" and "King of the Sea." Before he sat down in the driver's seat, Grandpa plucked the nearest hat off a hook and put it on over his bald spot to avoid burning his head in the hot summer sun. My grandpa maneuvered the large RV and boat out of our neighborhood, and in 10 minutes we were at Raccoon River, placing the red fishing boat in the water. I was going to borrow an extra pole that my grandpa kept, just in case. Great. If you haven't annotated on this page, make sure you make 3 or 4 annotations on this page before we move on. Paragraph 17. In minutes, all 3 of us kids had our lines in the water. The sweat running down my body was already stinging my eyes and turning the fake leather seat beneath me into a wet, slippery mess. The breeze that may have made the summer heat bearable was non-existent on the small lake surrounded by tall trees. It was going to be a long afternoon. 3 hours later, everybody else had caught at least 2 fish. The boat was once again attached to the back of the RV, and we were on our way home, a waste of another Sunday afternoon. "Wasn't that fun, kids?" asked my grandpa as he peeked back at us through the rearview mirror. My brothers both responded enthusiastically, and they began arguing about who had caught the biggest fish. I continued to stare out of the RV window without answering Grandpa's question. All right, you have a big blank space on your page right here. Go ahead and find it on your page. This is where you're going to write your genre-based thinking job. So decide if it is nonfiction, T-N-A-O-T, or if it's fiction, C-S-C-R-T. Pause the video and go ahead and write your genre-based thinking job. Pause the video and write your genre-based thinking job on your paper. All right, now we're going to start on the questions. You are going to have to use testing strategies. So after I read each question, I want you to stop the video and read and use your testing strategies. Number 1, what does paragraph 5 reveal about Paige? A, she fears going out on the lake. B, she wants to avoid her grandparents. C, she prefers the outdoors to coming inside. D, she wants to play with the neighborhood girls. Make sure you use your testing strategies. You can rewind if you want me to read this again. Number 2, how do paragraphs 8 through 10 develop the plot of the story? A, they give background information about Paige. B, they illustrate Paige's internal conflict. C, they explain why Paige admires her grandpa. D, they show how Paige and her brothers are alike. Use your testing strategies. Number 3, read the sentence from paragraph 14 below. Across from the kitchenette stood the bathroom, which contributed to the monster's bad case of morning breath. What does the metaphor mean in the sentence? A, the RV had a rotten smell. B, people slept poorly inside the RV. C, the RV was a cramped place. D, people made a mess inside the RV. Again, make sure you use your testing strategies. Number 4, which detail signals a change in the direction of the story? A, Grandpa loans Paige a fishing pole. B, Paige warns her family about the heat. C, Grandpa and Grandma arrive in their RV. D, Paige and the girls beat the boys in a water fight. Remember to pause the video when you need to add testing strategies on your page. You don't have to rush. Number 5, how does the author most develop Grandpa's point of view in the story? A, by having the narrator describe Grandpa. B, by sharing Grandpa's thoughts with the reader. C, by including dialogue between Grandpa and the kids. D, by showing how Grandpa acts with Paige's brothers. Pause the video and look back in the story if you need to. You can use testing strategies. Number 6, which detail would be most important to include in a summary of the story? A, Paige loses a lot of fishing poles. B, Grandpa owns many different hats. C, Paige enjoys water skiing and tubing. D, Grandpa wants to take the kids fishing. Pause the video and use your testing strategies. Number 7. The following item has 2 parts. Answer part A and then answer part B. Part A. Which sentence best expresses the theme of the story? A. People usually change as they grow older. B. Sometimes people are embarrassed by family. C. People often cherish their childhood memories. D. Sometimes people make choices to please others. Pause and use your testing strategies. Part B. Select a detail from the passage that best supports this theme. A. I don't know, Grandpa, it's pretty hot out. B. In 20 minutes, I found myself walking into the mouth of the monster. C. It was going to be a long afternoon. D. 3 hours later, everybody else had caught at least 2 fish. Pause the video. Make sure part B matches with part A. That's the end of this section. Go ahead and check over your annotations and your genre-based thinking job, and then you'll click on the next video to do the next passage.